It is a new week. Who's ready for a little Monday night mailbag here at 7 o'clock? I'm really feeling the love in the inbox these days. Maybe it's the time of year. Maybe it's just the season of giving. Elizabeth wrote, thank you for what you do. I hope you have a very nice Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, Elizabeth. Thank you for writing in. Tom wrote in from Central Florida. Great stories. Want to move from Florida? He asked. I'll even serve as a reference. You know, Tom, it's funny. I used to work in Florida. I lived there for a couple of years in Fort Myers. It's where I met my wife. I have fond memories of Florida, but I think I'm gonna stick around. If I moved, Eddie would be upset. He sent me an email and said, I know you've been all over the place in your career. Don't leave. You bring great insight and perspectives to the topics you discuss. I don't agree with them all, but it makes me think about a different perspective. Eddie, thank you. You have kind of perfectly captured what this segment is all about. But I got to tell you, and you already know this, I'm not perfect. And there are a whole lot of other people, I could read emails from them, people who agree with that statement. Jeff said as much in an email about our segment on constitutional amendments. He says we missed a couple of things. Jeff's email is, well, it's super long, but I'm going to boil it down to this. Quote, the legislature passed a resolution promoting U.S. term limits. The Convention of States project is another resolution. So, Jeff, thank you so much for pointing this out and writing in. You are exactly right. I said North Carolina joined other states in the call for a big U.S. constitutional convention like we saw back in 1787. That's wrong. It was more specific than that. What they did call for is a convention for a single amendment, and that's term limits on Congress. So since Jeff took the time to write in and point this out, and since we missed the point, we missed the mark a little bit, let's talk about it, all right? Let's talk about term limits. North Carolina's resolution promotes setting term limits on how many terms a U.S. senator or U.S. House rep can serve. It doesn't say what those term limits should be. It just says lawmakers should come together and figure it out. And it is a little ironic that a legislature run by two guys who have been in the state lawmaking business for over 20 years is calling for term limits, but that's what it takes. It is a bit ironic, but it's happening. But a lot of those people are on board with this. A 2023 poll from the University of Maryland's Program for Public Consultation found that 83% of registered voters support an amendment setting term limits. This is one of a few ideas that Republicans and Democrats and independents and a lot of people just all seem to agree on. Now, one of the arguments is that term limits would create a Congress that better reflects its constituents. A Republican senator from Wyoming said it this way: senators and members of Congress become out of touch with the rest of the country when they find themselves in Washington for too long. A Democratic House rep from Minnesota wrote, when we have too many members that are around for 30, sometimes 50 years, we are literally precluding participation of younger citizens. Some of the arguments against term limits point out that spending a long time in Congress might not be such a bad thing. I mean, think about it this way. If a lawmaker has a better understanding of how Congress works, that experience could make them more effective. Another argument is technically, Congress already has term limits. They're called elections. The Idaho Secretary of State's office put it this way: term limits is based on the arrogant assumption that the voters are incapable of deciding who they want to represent them in Congress. And any congressman who is made ineligible for re-election by term limits feels no restraints upon his behavior, since he will not face the voters again at the next election to answer for his conduct. Both sides of this conversation make some compelling points, and it appears North Carolina has picked a side in that argument. So, for now, it's just a conversation we're having. An actual amendment is pretty far off. So far, 9 states have called for this. You need 34 total to get a convention started. You need 38 at the end of it to approve the actual terms of the amendment. And it sounds like a really tall task, but consider, we have amended the Constitution 27 times in our history, the most recent one in 1992 over congressional salaries. That was pitched as an effort to prevent corruption. Some people think term limits could do the same. I want to thank Jeff again for sending in that email. This is what the mailbag is all about. It's not just fan mail, all right? It's a conversation, a way to keep us transparent. Your feedback keeps us honest and it keeps us accurate. That said, the fan mail is pretty fun too. I like that. I do. So please, let me know what you think. Send me an email, dan@WRAL.com. Do you think term limits are a good idea? What else do you want to see us cover in this segment? Tell us what is on your mind, and we will go in depth. Kat?